Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jay and welcome to the channel and welcome back to Avocet Point in Planet Zoo. Today we're back here of course with the brand new Wetlands pack that just dropped earlier today as of the time I'm recording this. I've been really excited for this pack. I'm sure a lot of you have been as well. And for a lot of today, while I've been at work, I've also had the Cappy Cam live stream that Frontier has been doing in the background and it's been super adorable. It's just fun to watch animals like go about their business. The capybaras were so cute. And it's really cool seeing what Frontier has done with the charity stream and the educational talks as well. They've been really fun. It's just cool to see that they're doing something really positive as well for a zoo. And the donations they've accumulated have been quite a decent amount as well, which is really nice to see. But yeah, so like I said, super excited for this pack. Big fan of all the animals. I've been wanting a capybara since the first ever DLC that we got. Actually, the second ever, I should say. I mean, I've always wanted a capybara in the game, but when we got a South America pack and we didn't get a capybara, I was really quite sad about that. So I'm so glad we have it now. But we're not actually building a habitat for a capybara today. Instead, we're going to be building a habitat for the Nile lechwe and for the wild water buffalo. First off, I know you might, what you're thinking, those two animals don't go together. Oh, right before we continue, actually, really quick tangent, huge thanks to Frontier for providing me a key for this game, so for this DLC, so that I can show it to you in game. Really big thanks there. And yeah, back to what I was saying, they're not necessarily animals you would imagine together, but the way I'm reasoning this is that, like I said before, Avocet Point isn't exactly the most high budget zoo, even though this habitat might be pushing it a bit. The idea is that in this habitat, what they probably had the idea for was to have a big savanna habitat, but with the animals on hand, they only managed to get like a few water buffalo and the Nile lechwe, so they just put them in here while they're waiting to maybe rejuggle the habitat in the future. And I think they kind of work together in the sense that there's different analogs for both animals in each of their respective environments. For example, the Nile lechwe would have seen African water buffalo all over the place quite regularly, whereas the Asian wild water buffaloes have their own respective antelopes. I believe axis deer might be one of them, or the chital deer, I think they're more regularly called. So they both have kind of their respective analogs, so I think they should be able to get along fine. I haven't seen much evidence of this in real zoos, though I have seen that both animals do coexist in mixed species habitats quite often from my quick research on zoo chat, so hopefully this arrangement works for now. We might end up rejuggling the habitat in the future, but let's be honest, the real reason I wanted to do this is because I just wanted to have a look at both of these animals, and they look pretty cool next to each other too. So as far as the habitat itself goes, it's going to be quite a big one. It's going to be kind of a tiered structure with two waterfalls and a river that kind of runs through it, as well as a relatively decent sized indoor section where we're going to have kind of a sleeping area, some indoor feeders. I actually put in the giraffe feeders because they look quite cool, but of course they don't work for these animals, they're just there to look quite interesting. And the indoor section is quite an odd shape, as you'll see me build, so I go back and forth on the design a little bit, but end up settling on a relatively simple kind of concrete base. Nothing too fancy at all, it's just the shape is a bit weird, but otherwise the materials are really simple. It's just concrete and of course bedding and stuff like that later to make it a bit more comfortable, some wood here and there. I end up removing these bamboo like slats here. I wasn't really a big fan of that, it didn't look supernatural, and well, of course, it didn't look supernatural. Yes, this bamboo fence didn't look like a ghost. No, I mean, it just didn't feel like it was the right choice here. I ended up changing it for some wood windows. But yeah, while we're doing this, let's talk a little bit about both these animals because they're very cool, and I'm really glad we have both of them in. Especially, actually, the wild water buffalo. The water buffalo are actually a really an animal that's kind of close to my childhood in a lot of ways. So I grew up in Malaysia, some of you might know. And the wild water buffalo is native to most of Southeast Asia, India, that sort of area, and they're actually very closely related to the domestic water buffalo. And in Malaysia, we actually see the domestic water buffalo kind of all over the place. Like even a short drive from my old house, we would go past fields, rice fields and stuff, and you'd see domestic water buffalo being used to plow the fields. And they are very closely related. There's the wild water buffalo is almost definitely what was domesticated to make the domestic water buffalo. but the wild water buffalo is quite endangered, unfortunately. In fact, the total population is probably less than 4,000, which is really, really sad. And hopefully that they can still be boosted in terms of numbers by protection. They're one of the heaviest kind of like bovine species in the world, so they're really, really big as well. Weirdly enough, not actually the biggest bovine in Southeast Asia, even though, or just generally South Asia, Southeast Asia, even though they're like the second biggest. The biggest is of course the gaur, or the gaur. I always struggle to pronounce that, but those are like those really hench, muscular, like cattle. Actually, cattle implies the domesticated. They're just bovines. They're big guys. Look up the gaur and you will just like you'll be blown away. Those guys just look like they're made out of pure muscle. It's insane. But yeah, the wild water buffalo is just really, really cool, and I'm really glad to see it in game and done so well. The fur texture is beautiful, especially the horn texture. I think especially was done really, really well. It looks so good. I'm really happy to have this animal in the game. It's nice to have an animal that I associate so closely with like where I grew up in the game. It's the same for when we got the Southeast Asia animal pack. All those animals I was really familiar with most of them growing up, like proboscis monkeys, I would see whenever I visited East Malaysia, which is on Borneo, the island of Borneo, stuff like that. So it's nice seeing animals that I'm a bit more familiar with like that. But yeah, really, really brilliant looking animal. And, you know, of course, alongside them, we're also including the Nile lechwe. It's a bit hard to pronounce it. From what I can tell, it's pronounced lechwe, but I'm probably gonna butcher that slightly. They are one of the types of lechwe's. There's a few different types of them around. These ones are found in Sudan and Ethiopia. They're also endangered, unfortunately. They're very beautiful animals. They're very, very distinctive, of course. They've got these beautiful curved horns. They've got that nice... The males especially have this really beautiful bright white coloration on the nape of their neck and also kind of just behind the eyes. The females look a lot more tame in comparison, so you really can't make a direct comparison there. They look very, very different here. But they're super interesting animals because they are definitely one of the more aquatically inclined, is that even a term? More aquatically inclined antelope species. They found quite regularly in swamps in really, really big herds where they're kind of active around dawn and dusk. You might have seen some pictures of them where it's really misty and they're in a swamp in the water. And they generally eat lots of grasses and water plants. Where rice grows, like wild rice, that's where they eat it, generally speaking. They can swim pretty up to some pretty deep waters as well with a pretty decent like level of capability, I guess. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, they are also protected in certain areas, of course, because I said they're endangered. They're found in certain game reserves and national parks where they are protected pretty well. So that is a good sign, and hopefully that is maintained for the foreseeable future. Yeah, you know, it's always nice to know that there are protection plans ongoing for animals like this. But yeah, both two brilliant animals, both two that I'm really excited to have in game, and both that I'm really excited to make this habitat for. As you can see, we're pretty much coming up to the end of building the indoor section here. Roofing is always a bit of a tricky thing for me. I end up using these plaster pieces to create like what you see indoors and to cover up all the space a bit better, and then after this I go for, I believe, a slate roofing, or maybe not slate actually. What was it? It was that. What is that? It's a type of roofing. It's like a wooden roofing of some description. I know that doesn't help things very much. I'm just putting in a glass panel here so they get some sunlight. As you can see, I did put in those I think those are giraffe feeders. Are they elephant feeders actually? They might be elephant feeders. But I think they look really cool. Putting in one like kind of angled roof on one side and then flat roof for the other, just to provide some interest. As you can see with the waterfall system that we built, there's a big pool up here where the water originates. In my head, this is all man-made stuff. There wasn't a river here originally. They kind of dug it out and they've got a water pump system that pumps in water from nearby. Because there is like lots and lots of water bodies here. So I imagine they've got some sort of simple system there designed to do that. Or maybe there already was like a slight river, the waterfalls were just kind of added to provide some interest. That, I don't know how realistic that is. I know water stuff is incredibly difficult to maintain, so I don't know if that would be within the zoo's budget. I don't even know like how long we'll be able to maintain that idea of a low budget zoo, because I always tend to like just build whatever I feel like building, and if that falls out of that idea, then well, we'll see how it goes. I'm still trying to keep to that idea to some extent, and I imagine this is something we would have put more money into, because at the time it would have been a much bigger like project. They would have been like, this is going to be our big savanna habitat, we're going to have like bigger animals and stuff, but they only ended up finding the Nile lechwe and the wild water buffalo for now. But I guess in their heads they were hoping this would be for like rhinos or something like that. So yeah, I we'll see how I justify this going forward. We get some new water options as well, by the way. We're getting the mist option, and we got some bubble options. While I was building the first half of this build, I didn't have access to the new pack yet, and then the second half of this build I just finished earlier today when the pack released out to the public, and when I got my hands on it. So that's when I did that. And for that I tried out some of the water effects. I didn't end up using any major ones. The two main things are you get bubbles and mist now. Both look pretty cool. The mist I can see myself using in smaller settings, but because it's a river I didn't see, and because it's out in the open like this, I just couldn't see it looking supernatural. Again, supernatural. It's gonna look like a poltergeist apparently. But no, as in it just didn't end up looking particularly, it didn't fit in super well. The waterfalls though I think look pretty nice. You can tell quite clearly that they're meant to be artificial waterfalls, which is what I was going for. And just putting in a flat bottom for the river area as well to, again, just harken to the idea that this is an artificially built area. By the way, just a quick apology. I know my voice might be a bit scratchy at the moment. Just been a long day of talking to a lot of people at work, so it's been one of those days where I'm a bit like tired and my voice is kind of going a little bit. So it's just a little bit of that. But it's nice to be able to finish the work there and come into some new stuff in Planet Zoo and play it. It's just really nice. I'm super excited for where this is going to go in terms of like what we're going to do for our zoo here. I think the next habitat we'll probably build is going to be a capybara one, because I cannot resist any longer. Capybara though, I see them getting along with so many animals. In like any zoo I've been to with capybaras, they're just chilling there with whatever animal they happen to be in a habitat with, be it antelopes or deer or larger cattle or bovines. I'm pretty sure I've seen them in with certain carnivores before too, which is kind of bonkers. But they're really, really chill. And as long as they're given them anything they need, like the space, the food, and all that, they do fine with a lot of different species. So we'll definitely make it a mixed habitat, I think. And then we'll see how that goes, and we'll see what animal we end up choosing. Gosh, watching the Cappy Cam today that Frontier put up, the live stream, it was so cute. They of course had a much more kind of like tame approach to the capybara habitat there. It's mainly just plain grass with some enrichment items here and there. I want to take a bit more of a naturalistic approach, so we'll see how that goes. Though again, I do appreciate that for some animals, all they need is a really tame, chill environment that they can just hang out in, and as long as they get the right food, the right shelter, they're more than happy with it. So it really depends. One thing that was really cool though is that I found out that the zoo that they went to today, Frontier, for this live Cappy Cam, does these capybara experiences where you can go in and give food to the capybara and pet them and stuff. So maybe I have another bucket list item. I don't know. No, what do you mean I don't know? I absolutely do have another bucket list item now. I want to hang out with the capybara. That would be so cool. I haven't actually, as much as I love zoos, I've never really done one of those animal experience things, and I think I would like to do one. I just want to make sure it's an animal that is okay with human contact. I know some animals will get really, really stressed, especially if it's not a keeper that they recognize. From what I can tell, capybaras actually are one of the better animals for this, because they're fine usually with human contact. The dangerous bit comes is like capybaras need to be social with other capybaras. They really shouldn't be bonded only with people. They can bond with people. It's recommended they bond with their keepers, but they shouldn't only have human contact. They need to also have other capybara contact to be healthy. So as long as there are other capybaras around, I think it'd be pretty cool to do a little capybara experience like that. That'd be fun. Oh, and you can see here, I'm doing this little technique which I learned from Leaf Productions. Leaf does amazing Planet Zoo videos, would highly recommend. And also I saw, I believe a couple other YouTubers do this, the Lady Designer I think, where they create these cool little like naturalistic kind of mud wall type situations with the faux tree inverted, and I think it ends up looking really nice. I put some mulch on it and then add some foliage. I add bramble in actually at the end. I might go in and change that later because the bramble looks a little bit, I know the color of it looks a bit odd compared to the other foliage in here, but I don't know, we'll see, and maybe I change my mind later on. We also added these new trees in here. There's a few new trees today that they added. We got some new cypress trees, and then, oh gosh, what are these called? It's like water something. Is it water Tilupa? Why am I thinking Tilupa? It's something like that. Oh, wait, is it? No, the water tupelo. That's what it is. The water tupelo. So it's another swamp plant. Generally only found in the US actually, but I think they look kind of generic enough, especially when you sink them into the ground to hide kind of their wider, swampier bases. It does help a little bit when you sink them down, and they look a bit more like a generic tree, and they look really good in this habitat, I think. You can see now they're fully above the ground, but I do sink them down a little bit later. Using lots and lots of these cattails as well, and some reeds to really hammer home the swampy aspect, because of course, Wetlands Animal Pack, wetland animals, wetland foliage. I think it ends up looking pretty good. I will admit it looks a little bit messy towards the end, and off screen I do end up cleaning out some of it. Like I put in a bit too much foliage in certain areas. There we go with the ponytail palm again because I love it. Beautiful plant. Some aquatic foliage here. This to show that even if it's artificial, there's plants growing in there because, you know, like water plants spring up pretty easily. Using a lot of these periwinkle to create some ground cover. Again, this is where it kind of gets a bit messy, so I cleaned it up a little bit later. So there's not as much, but I think it still looks pretty good, especially near the edges. It does, again, help lend to that swampy kind of vibe. I also kind of supplement this with some drin grass and a couple other longer grasses. Like, I sing down some of the hawthorn, for example, because it looks quite nice. And it's kind of, the way I'm going about this is trying to create that swampy environment, but also trying to think of colors. Because, of course, all these different greens have very, very different shades, and it's sometimes they clash a little bit with each other, so it's about maintaining kind of homogeneity to some extent, but then making sure your accent plants stick out. So like the ponytail palm, I always want that to be the most saturated green because it's clearly, you know, the accent plants where you look at them and you're like, okay, that's where your eye is drawn. Really pretty. And yeah, it's just like, this is what I mean by the bramble not fitting in as well. As you can see on screen, the green doesn't quite match up with some of the other green. It looks a bit too different. But I think it's okay. I think it's not awful by any means. As you can see, we also have this elevated walkway here. I just kind of built it in a very random shape, and I'm going to use it to kind of dictate where the habitats are going to go. I really didn't think very much about where this was going. I just made a curvy little elevated path, and then wherever, you know, we end up, I'll just kind of build habitats there. I think it's an interesting way to kind of box me into a corner in a bit of a way, and then, you know, from there I can just be creative and figure out a way around this self-imposed problem, I guess. It's something I like doing, and I think it'll hopefully lead to some pretty creative habitats. One other thing is you can probably tell the other side of this where, which is the non-elevated side, isn't necessarily directly meant for viewing this habitat because it's blocked off. Well, at least half of it is blocked off. And guests are generally encouraged to walk in the elevated bit to look at the animals in here. For the final little bit here, we're just building a little shelter, and I think it ends up looking pretty straightforward. You know, it's a simple shelter. We end up duplicating it so there's two of them. The animals can, of course, hang out here when they are just wanting some shade. That's pretty much it for today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. Again, big thanks to Frontier for the key for this DLC. Really appreciate it, and you know, it gives me the chance to showcase all these amazing new animals with you guys at home. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What was I going to say? I was going to say something before we go, but I've completely forgotten. So I'll think about it and maybe tell you next time we do another episode of this. So Thanks so. Oh, by the way, you might see me put in some other enrichment items. I was thinking of putting in some ostriches here. Didn't end up doing that. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of today's episode. Like the video if you did like it. And as always, I will see you all in the next video. Bye.